Hey gang, it's a new year, so let's look at another Greg Locke video.
Hey guys, Pastor Greg Locke here. Have you noticed how the new atheism has become so antagonistic? We hate a God that we don't even believe in.
The antagonism is not really directed towards God itself, but rather its fan club. If you want to believe, fine, go for it. But forcing it on the rest of us, making the rest of us accommodate your claims, or writing laws that conform to your Levitical beliefs, well, that's when it becomes a problem.
If you can't explain God, we're not going to believe in him. Listen, if I could explain God in a way that your 3-pound brain could contain it, then he wouldn't be worthy of your worship anyhow.
You don't need to explain something to get me to accept that it exists, but you do need evidence of it. As a kid, I didn't understand the process that created snowflakes, but I still had evidence of their existence.
And pray tell me, why is it that every time something bad happens, they blame it on a God that they don't even believe in?
I don't think anybody has ever argued that they blame gods they don't believe in. When tragedy strikes their lives, many people with faith can either blame a god.
I absolutely believe in God. And I absolutely hate the fucker.
Or ask how could a loving God allow it to happen, causing them to question their faith. But I've never known anybody to really disbelieve and personally hate at the same time. Also, you can hate the concept or actions of fictional beings and still understand they're not real.
And look, you really can't have it both ways. Just because there's storms and starvation and rape and murder does not mean that there's not a God.
No, but it does mean that there isn't a God that could do anything to prevent such things and cares enough to prevent them if it could. No atheist I know blames a God for the bad things that happen, but some use the argument that if there was a God, it wouldn't allow such things to happen in the first place. Terrible things do happen, so there isn't one. I actually think that's a bad argument against a deity. There could be an omnipotent being out there responsible for creating the universe that just doesn't care about us and lets terrible things happen. Or even that there is a God and it finds human suffering the greatest entertainment possible. I've had bad things happen in my life, and would have loved to have somebody to blame for it. I wish I could point to a deity and ask, why did this happen? But, as far as I can tell, sometimes things just happen with no rhyme or reason.
That's like saying, oh, I saw a long-haired person, so therefore I don't believe in barbers. Are you kidding me?
Look, I may not have been to a barber in a long time, but claiming that one doesn't exist is in no way the same as claiming there is no God. Even if I've never been to a barber, I have evidence of several things. 1. That people exist. 2. Many people have hair that grows and needs to be cut. 3. People will often pay others for services.
Money can be exchanged for goods and services.
Therefore, it's not a stretch to say that it's likely a person will sell their services to cut hair. That's a reasonable conclusion to come to. To follow this example, it would be unreasonable to say that since people have hair that gets shortened into fashionable styles, therefore, I know that a magical squid crawls into people's rooms at night and eats long hair, which shapes it into the accepted style at the time. That would be ridiculous because I don't have any evidence of hair-eating squid. In the same vein, I don't have any evidence of an intelligence behind the creation of the universe, so I have no reason to accept one.
I saw a sick person, so I don't believe in doctors. That's ridiculous.
The difference between your God and a doctor is that nobody claims that doctors are perfect. They do make mistakes. Believe me. The God you claim to believe in is supposed to be all-loving and all-powerful, so would be able to cure anything. Our medical knowledge is not all-encompassing. We're still learning how to treat diseases, so there will be sick people out there. But we're getting better. Things that would have decimated populations in the past when all they had was prayer are now easily treatable. It's almost as if we're better at improving things than your deity is.
Just because there's junk and garbage going on in the world doesn't mean there's not a God. God made everything perfect. He gave us the keys to the car, and we're the ones that put it in the ditch. God forgives sins, but he doesn't relieve consequences.
Doesn't relieve consequences? Isn't that the entire point of the Jesus narrative? That the consequences of sin have been resolved by Jesus' death on the cross? What about natural disasters or things out of our control? I'll buy that a loving God will allow us to suffer the consequences of our own actions, but how does that explain a family drowning in a flood or some disease killing children too young to even know what's going on around them?
How many atheists do you know that want to fuss and fight with you about trolls and about smurfs and about fairies? None of them.
That's because people who believe in trolls and smurfs and fairies don't usually use their beliefs to affect others. There's never been a lawmaker saying that we should treat creatures of metamorphical rock as second-class citizens, that houses should be made of mushrooms, or that we must go to war with Avalon to stop King Oberon from kidnapping people.
They all want to fight about God. Why? Because you don't fight stuff that's non-existent. You fight stuff that in your conscience you know is existing.
You really want to go there, Greg? That people only argue against things they actually believe in? Fine, have it your way. Cue the clip.
There is absolutely not one shred of observable evidence for evolution.
Huh. Interesting. It's almost as if you're arguing against something that other people accept, but you don't. Very odd, but by your logic, you must actually accept evolution.
I'm here to tell you, you have no morality except for the God code that has been placed within you.
If we have a, as you said, God code placed within us, everybody would have the same morality, and it would be unchangeable throughout the ages. But what is considered moral varies from person to person, and societal morality has changed over the years. It used to be acceptable to own humans, and lynching somebody because they happened to look at somebody else with a different skin tone was a community activity. Now, our changing morality has led many of us to condemn actions like that. I've gone over this many times in the past, but to put it simply, my morality is based on not causing harm. I won't do things that I know cause harm for no reason. I won't murder or rape or, for a totally random example, abuse my wife both physically and emotionally, hit her and slam her into walls, shame her for her weight and for assuming she'll sleep with others, while at the same time planning on leaving her for my secretary who is still married at the time, and claim to everybody that I'm being abandoned while I file divorce papers as she's attempting reconciliation. You'd have to be a real monster to do that. Good point.
Every man is born with the light of Christ. So at the end of the day, you can say you don't believe in God, but the truth is, God doesn't believe in atheists.
Let's say I'm wrong and there is a God. I'll even give you that's the Abrahamic Judeo-Christian one you believe in. Wouldn't it know that I exist, even if I was wrong and didn't accept the claims people like you make regarding it? I mean, it's supposed to be all-knowing. Wouldn't it know both that I exist and that I'm unconvinced that it does?
The heart of the issue is not that you deny deity, it's that you deny responsibility because you don't want any accountability.
This argument always confuses me. If I didn't want accountability, I would have to find a way to avoid the authorities, not claim they don't exist. If I wanted to commit a daring casino robbery with a ragtag group of accomplices, I'd have to find a way to avoid the police, not just say they aren't there. And, since you're arguing from a Christian perspective, isn't being absolved of your sins through no effort on your part removing any accountability anyway?
But I'm here to tell you, you're going to stand before God, and every knee shall bow, and every tongue shall confess that Jesus Christ is Lord to the glory of God the Father.
If I find myself in front of God, then I'll have to admit, yes, it exists, because I'll have been given evidence. Now, if this God wanted me to believe in it, being the omniscient being it's claimed to be, it should be easy enough to know what evidence would convince me. And, being the omnipotent being it's claimed, should be able to provide it. I'm still waiting, so either it doesn't want me to accept that it exists, or it just doesn't, and honestly I'm leaning towards the latter.
So I just want to thank all of my atheist friends out there, because every time you comment nonsense and hatred on my page, you're just sticking me into the feed of a whole lot of friends that get to hear the gospel of Jesus Christ.
Well, you're welcome. But just for my own edification here, who watching these videos hasn't heard of the gospel of Jesus? If anything, I've got to give the Christian lobby props. They've gotten their message out pretty well. Everybody who could be watching these videos has heard it at some point. Now, convincing people, that's a different story, but you can't really say we haven't heard it already.
So at the end of the day, God's going to get His glory with or without you.
If that's the case, Greg, why even bother making these videos or trying to convince anybody if God's going to get His glory no matter what? Shut up, voices in my head. I stop making these, you go back to being nothing but my own self-doubt. Okay then. See y'all next time.
I hear screams.